All right, our video today is on evaluating absolute value. Okay, our I can statement is I can determine the absolute value of an integer. Now, if you remember from our previous lesson where we talked about absolute value is always positive. Absolute value is always positive. So if we look at our first problem, you remember our symbols for absolute value are these long lines like this. We're going to put 8 minus 12. Now, if you remember, when we're doing that, I'm going to draw these again. We're going to keep that first number, change that minus to a plus, and then change the sign of next. So now we have the absolute value of 8 plus a negative 12. Because when you're subtracting integers, you're just adding the opposite. So here we're adding a negative 12. Different signs subtract. So we're going to look at 12 minus 8. What is 12 minus 8? That is 4. What's the largest absolute value is going to be what was with 12, which is a negative. And right here I've said always positive. So the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So your answer is always positive within the absolute value bars. Our next problem. This is a little different. We've got a negative on the outside of the absolute value bar. Okay? So we've got a negative on the outside. So I'm going to put the negative and I'm going to draw the bars. And here is the 2. We're going to change that minus to a plus. Then we're going to change that positive 6 to a negative 6. And inside there, we've got different signs. So the opposite of, if 6 minus 2 is 4, the number with the largest absolute value is 6, which is negative. And here's what you need to know. This negative, and then what is the absolute value of negative 4, which is 4. So that negative stays on the outside of that absolute value bar. All right, our next problem. The absolute value of negative 2 plus the absolute value of 8. So can you tell me the absolute value of negative 2? That's right, it's positive, so it's going to be 2. And then plus, and what's the absolute value of 8? Which is 8. And 2 plus 8 is 10. All right, our next problem, we've got another negative out here. Then we've got 2 minus 1. All right, remember we have to keep that negative. And then what is 2 minus 1? Is 1. And then the absolute value bar. So what's the opposite of the absolute value of 1? The absolute value of 1 is 1. And we keep that because that's the opposite of it. So the answer is negative 1. And our last problem, the absolute value of 4 minus 7. Keep that 4, change that minus to a plus, change that positive 7 to a negative 7. You've got different signs there. So 7 minus 4 is 3. And which one of those numbers has the largest absolute value, which is 7? So we keep that right there. And the absolute value of negative 3 equals 3. Any questions, ask.